Wow. Here we go. Where's my wife? Sarah? Oh, okay. I thought you were going to be over there. I feel better already. All right, so I also want to tell you that I have some fancy jeans in my truck and a really cool shirt, but there are some people in here that know me, and they'll tell you that I'm pretty dressed up right now. So I decided to be me. So this is me. Also, before I start, I have a confession to make. When Kristen first contacted me about speaking at this event, I thought, this girl must be crazy. I mean, not only was she wanting the beanbag guy to come talk to you about business success, but she was also wanting me to narrow it down to just one thing. I mean, how in the world could a person narrow it down to one thing? I've been in business for almost 16 years now, and you can bet during that time I've had a lot of great learning experiences. And there was just no way I could imagine narrowing it down to just one thing. But turns out she was right, because I realized that all these experiences could be put into one category and summarized with one single word. And that word is relationships. Yes, I'm here today to talk to you about your relationships. Just kidding, sort of. So let me start by telling you about one of my favorite relationships and the conversation that inspired what I'm going to tell you today. It was with a guy named Paul Stroman, and sadly, he's a good friend of mine, and he passed away recently. And I'm going to dedicate this to him and his family out in Wisconsin. Thanks. Paul was a furniture rep when I first met him, and we became really good friends, and we would spend hours on the phone talking about business. And one day, I was on the back porch, and I'm pacing around, talking to Paul, because if you guys didn't know, that's what entrepreneurs do when we talk on the phone. We pace around like that. I wear out a pair of shoes if I talk on the phone. And I suspect Paul's probably pacing around barefoot like he always is, and we're talking on the phone, and I'm telling him about this beanbag business that I'm creating. And one thing I loved about Paul is he liked to dream big, huge. And no sooner than I told him about the business, he already had me with worldwide distribution, making millions of dollars, and going on and on and on about how great it was going to be. And finally, I just said, Paul, hold on, man, hold on. I mean, this all sounds great, but it's not necessarily the driving force right now. And of course, Paul wasn't going to let me off easy. He said, well, then what is, Byron? Don't you hate it when people use your name at the end of a question like that? What is it about that? I'm like my mom or something. He said, so what is it, Byron? I'll never forget. And I took a deep breath and I said, well, right now I guess I'm just looking for security. I just want to feel like the business is secure. And I guess what I meant by that was I didn't want to have to stress about making payroll. I didn't want to have to stress about paying my bills, and I certainly didn't want to have to stress about going out of business. I actually thought it was a pretty good answer, and one that showed that I was a team player, I wasn't greedy, all that good stuff, but not Paul. Paul just started cracking up. He goes, security? What the heck is that? How are you going to get that? And I remember standing on the back porch, I'm sitting there, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's right. By my own definition of security, my business is never going to be secure. And that got me thinking, what is security? And is it even possible for a business or anything else for that matter to ever really be truly secure? I mean, we all know, or at least most of us know, that money can't buy happiness. But can it provide security? Well, I don't think it can, because I'll tell you this, no matter how much money you have, it can always be gone. So if money doesn't provide it, then what does? So after some extensive back porch pondering that may or may not have included alcohol, I figured it out. And I redefined security to be what is left after all the money is gone. Yep, what's left after all the money's gone? And that sounds crazy, doesn't it? How can you be secure? Well, this was a long time ago, so the World Trade Center attacks were on my mind at the time. And I remember it all happening, it's right there on the back porch still. And I remember thinking about what went through my head when I first learned about the attacks. And I know all of you probably remember where you were and what you were thinking about right when you thought. Think back right now to what was going through your head when you first learned about the attacks. I don't know about you, but for me, money was not very high on my priority list at that point. For me, it was something that I call the 3 F's: faith, family, and friends. Or, in a word, relationships. Yeah. It was my relationships that made me feel secure at that moment, not money, because money's not the answer. Money's just one of the rewards for knowing the answer. Relationships are what provide security. And by the way, I think the order of those 3 F's, I was debating on what order to put them in, and so I put them in the obvious order: faith, family, and friends. Would you believe they're also alphabetical? I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. Andy, there's an I in faith. Just remember, that's what changes everything. So he's English. So, but wait a minute. So all this is great. You know, this is all, makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. But a business needs to make money, right? Absolutely. The more, the better. All I'm saying is that money doesn't provide security. Focus on your relationships, and the money will come. Security will come. Because I promise you this, the larger a business becomes, the larger its problems also become. For instance, I remember back when I was starting CordaRoys, back in the garage days, when we had a manufacturing issue such as bad zippers. Let me tell you something about zippers. Zippers are a pain in the butt. And if you ever make anything involving a zipper, you go out and you find the best zipper you can possibly find, because they can wreck your day. So back in the day, in the garage days, when I was having manufacturing issues, bad zippers, it might affect a few people. You know, we get around it no problem. Nowadays, a bad zipper issue can be thousands of people. It can be devastating. In fact, I remember in the past 10 years, I bet there's been 3 cases where we've had manufacturing issues that could have wiped us out. You're not going to believe what saved us. Relationships. My suppliers, I've been with them for over 10 years now, and you can bet during that time we've had our ups and downs, but through it all, we've always put the relationship first. When trouble arises, and you can bet problems always come up, we stick together and we work it out. Now, as you might imagine, since these are business relationships, most of the time this deals with money. Excuse me. But not always. It can be joining forces to defend our patent. It can be sharing knowledge, advice, risk. Whatever it is, make your relationship your main focus. And another important thing, surround yourself with people who share in this belief, and get really far from people who don't. There's a simple statement that I always use that sums it up. Do the right thing even when the right thing is difficult to do. Especially when the right thing is difficult to do. You know what I mean. Just because you can get away with it doesn't make it right. And don't worry. If you're doing something that you know in your heart is the right thing to do, and it happens to be costing you some money, oh, you're buying security. There it is, right there. Do the right thing even when the right thing is difficult to do. Not only will you be secure, but you'll also sleep well at night. A privilege that should never, ever be taken for granted. That's it. I'm Byron. Thanks for listening.